Hi there everyone, my name's Adam Voigt. I'm the CEO of Real Schools. I'm a former school principal and this is the first of a series of short videos that I'm going to be doing with SchoolStream about a really important topic, and it's about how we can bring schools and families back onto the same page. I often get the opportunity in the work that I do to get around Australia and ask both parents and schools what they think has changed the most in the last 30 years in education. And I guess one of the things we laugh about sometimes is that it's probably the fact that 30 years ago, if you got in trouble at school, you got in trouble twice. And I think what that was evidence of was that the relationship between home and school would be best described as being a partnership. That means that we've both got a really common goal, and we've got a common goal that's really important. So we've agreed that what we're doing is trying to take a young person, trying to teach them as much relevant stuff as we can, trying to get them to really love learning, and we're trying to collectively turn them into a fantastic citizen. So it's a big deal. And I think what's happened is, as lives of people have become very busy, we've started to change that from a big purpose of working together to really change and build this young person. We've started to view education as being a little bit more like a commodity. It's a little bit more that, it's a transactional kind of approach, and we start to argue around the edges there. When we get a bad haircut, we go back in and give our hairdresser a bit of a mouthful about it. If we get a bad bit of service from the news agents, then we'll make sure we let them know, or we won't go and use them again. And we started to view education the same way, which means that the relationship has stopped being a partnership, and because it's more about commodity and exchange and trade, it's now something that's actually become quite adversarial. And so we need to do something about that, because as we know, when we can get our parents heavily involved and committed and invested in the education of their child, that's when some really fantastic things start to happen between the home and the school. So the question, of course, is how does that happen? And I think as schools, what we need to do is we need to sort of stop, I guess, waiting for that answer to come from somewhere else. It's probably unlikely, due to populist demands, to come from government. It's probably unlikely that the media will start to demand that home and school work together again, because conflict's far more interesting. So what we need to do is to have each school, one school at a time. So what we're going to do is we're going to reposition that partnership between home and school around the really important things. We're going to be the ones that communicate our expertise. We're not going to communicate heavily around the peripherals, but we're going to find devices to meet people where they are, to include people in the educative process, and to make sure that that's geared around that really important stuff, around how we're helping our young people learn, and also how we're turning them into terrific citizens for the future. The great part about achieving both of those things is they become employable, they become successful, and they become happy. So that's what we're really looking for around how we can improve the relationship between home and school. I want to invite you all to come along as well to a webinar that SchoolStream and I will be running. It's going to be called 21st Century Approaches to Homeschool Communication. And we're going to unpack some of the strategies that have been proven to work, and also the ones that I guess give you the best return for investment. We don't want you to be using strategies that cost you a whole heap of time for a tiny bit of return. We want to make sure that you've got the great ways to communicate with parents in a ways that actually gets them onto that same page with you at your school. So I'm really looking forward to having you along to that. Keep your eye out for the details. I'll talk to you soon.